Simply put, the regime in Iran represents an incredible threat to American interests, and not in a good way, and to the stability in an already volatile part of the world. They're a state sponsor of terrorism who, by thumbing their nose at the international community, inch closer and closer to nuclear weapon capabilities. They supply weapons to our enemies in Iraq and Afghanistan and are directly responsible for attacks on our troops. They incite violence in Israel and Lebanon through their support of Hamas and Hezbollah, and they help prop up murderous dictators like Assad in Syria. They're a flagrant violator of international law, human rights, and religious freedom, and now they're trying to kill foreign diplomats on our soil. Now, we've taken a number of steps to crack down on this regime, but it's clear we need to tighten the screws. It boggles the mind that we continue to see businesses, American businesses, supporting Iran's economy by actively circumventing imposed sanctions. It's outrageous, and we need to put a stop to it immediately. Business as usual is not going to cut it. There has to be a greater sense of urgency here, and I hope you all agree, and I think you do. I look forward to the hearing, your recommendations, and how we move forward most effectively. Recently, I heard one of America's largest companies, Koch Industries, was in the business of supporting Iran through energy development. If they're doing it, there's probably others that are doing it. I've got some concerns with this. Number one, I think that anytime you can manipulate loopholes and be able to do this, that's a concern. So what they did might be, in fact, legal. The second one is that I'm concerned that American companies would exploit loopholes and give Iran the tools they need to be a more powerful player in the world. I think that's all we don't want to see what happen. More of a security threat, more of a threat to everybody in the world. So the real question is, since obviously with some companies you can't enforce common sense or the sense of patriotism, should we be allowing subsidiaries of American companies to be able to do business in Iran, or should we be, as I said in my opening, putting the screws to these companies? Because quite frankly, it's one thing for a Chinese company to be doing it. That's unacceptable. It's really unacceptable for an American subsidiary to be able to do it. Could you get your comments on that?
Senator Tester, I think I saw the same article about Koch Industries that you saw. And I will not speak specifically about Koch Industries, but I will address the issue broadly of subsidiaries of U.S. companies doing business in Iran. It is a violation of U.S. law for a U.S. company to do business in Iran via a subsidiary.
Okay.
What that means is if the U.S. parent is acting through its subsidiary, directing its activity, that violates U.S. law. If the subsidiary is acting wholly independently of the parent, U.S. law doesn't reach that subsidiary, with the exception of, and I think Secretary Mills can elaborate on this, the re-exportation of controlled items from the United States. The balance that has been struck in the law thus far is that we direct our law to U.S. companies and what U.S. companies do. Subsidiaries are not, by definition, U.S. persons. They're foreign persons. And so the basic theory is we will look at what U.S. persons do, what U.S. companies do. If they're acting through a foreign person, then the law prohibits that. But if the foreign person is acting independently.
Should it be changed?
Well, I think for subsidiaries of U.S. companies, I think it is fair to look at that very carefully.
Should we be doing things like requiring American companies to disclose to their investors their subsidiaries and what kind of business they're into?
I think that's an interesting idea. I think we're working on some other ideas in the Treasury Department on how to more effectively limit what subsidiaries can do and the benefit of the subsidiaries to their parent. I think there are ways to go about this without crossing that line of saying, look, we're going to try to directly regulate a foreign person. There are ways, I think, to focus on the U.S. parent that will have an effect on whether a foreign subsidiary would be willing to do business with Iran.
I've got to tell you, I think any company that has a subsidiary that's doing business with Iran, we need to shine some sunlight on that, because quite frankly, I don't think the American people would accept that very well. And quite frankly, I think that would take care of the problem. So thank you.